So as this first stage of the COP26 draws to a close, and don't forget, there are still 2 weeks of detailed negotiation to come, we must take care to guard against false hope and not to think in any way that the job is done, because it is not. There is still a very long way to go. But all that being said, I am cautiously optimistic in the sense that on the way to the G20 in Rome, I said to some of you on the plane that if this was a football match, then the current score would be 5-1 down in the match between humanity and climate change. And I think what you could say today, after 2 days of talks with around 120 world leaders, is that we've pulled back a goal, or perhaps even 2. And I think we're going to be able to take this thing to extra time, because there's no doubt that some progress has been made. We're ending the Great Chainsaw Massacre with more than 85% of the world's forests to be protected by the end of this decade, an unprecedented agreement by 122 countries now, backed by the biggest ever commitment of public funds for forest conservation, with much more still to come from the private sector. We've got 90% of the world's economy working towards net zero, up from less than a third when the UK took up the COP reins, including India keeping 1 billion tonnes of carbon out of the atmosphere by switching half its power grid to renewable sources. More than 100 countries have just signed up to cut their methane emissions by 2030. When we were selected as hosts of COP26, just 1% of the world's economy had met the post-Paris obligation to improve on their 2030 emission targets. Today, that figure stands at 80%. And it's not just that we're putting forward better targets or bigger targets. The world has been actually putting forward the plans to reach those targets. Billions of dollars have been committed to supporting developing and vulnerable countries. Big business has stepped up with the launch of the Glasgow Breakthroughs this afternoon, and our Clean Green Initiative idea, the Build Back Better World idea that Joe Biden talks about, is catching on, and it's taking the green industrial revolution worldwide. For example, we're working with South Africa's President Ramaphosa to deliver his ambitious vision for faster, greener growth. And what I would say is, we've been asking for action, as you know, on coal, cars, cash and trees. And after just a couple of days, we can certainly begin to tick 3 of those boxes. If you can begin, we're beginning to write the tick. And that's all happened because we were able to come together in person in Glasgow and do this, make it happen at COP26. And of course, it's only part of the story. Although the UK has this week committed a further $1 billion of international climate finance, taking our total to £12.6 billion by 2025, £12.6 billion that we're committing to climate finance. Actually, just a few hours ago, Japan announced another $10 billion over the next 5 years, a big commitment from Japan. The reality is that the developed world will still be late in hitting the $100 billion target. And it's brilliant that so many countries have embraced net zero this week, but we're going to keep working with all the leaders around the world to get them there sooner, to accelerate their timetable. We've now protected 85%, we've got measures to protect 85% of the world's forests and 90% of the world's economy working to net zero. Those commitments will be 100% useless if the promises made here are not followed up with real action. As Prime Minister Mia Mottley of Barbados so passionately warned us yesterday, climate change is not some parochial political issue. For tens of millions of people around the world, it is literally a matter of life or death. Those economies need 1.5 to survive. So I'll be watching proceedings, we'll be watching proceedings very closely to make sure we keep moving forward and there are no U-turns, no sliding back from where we've got to. But I think we can be confident about one thing in the days ahead, the couple of weeks we've got. The clock on the doomsday device that I talked about is still ticking. But we've got a bomb disposal team on site, and they're starting to snip the wires, I hope some of the right wires. And my message to them, to the negotiators, is very simple. The leaders of the world may have left or are leaving COP now, but I can tell you that the eyes of the world, the eyes of the populations of the world are on you, and the eyes of the British government and all the other governments that care about this are on our negotiators, and we have your numbers. Thank you all very much.